Welcome to the show. Ever get the feeling like there's, I don't know, more to religious text than we usually see,
Hmm.
like some hidden depth?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're taking a look at the Baha'i approach to understanding Scripture.
Right.
And to guide us, we've got Baha'u'llah's commentary on, get this, the Surah of the Sun.
From the Quran.
Exactly.
That's fascinating stuff.
Really is. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about interfaith dialogue.
Right.
So we've got this academic paper as our source today, and it actually has the full text of the surah,
Okay.
plus Baha'u'llah's analysis.
Which is,
Oh, it's amazing.
it's incredible. And he was actually asked to write this by an Ottoman scholar.
Can you imagine?
I know, incredible. But this isn't just about, understanding this one chapter of the Quran. It gets at the core of how Baha'is approach any scripture.
Okay, so how is it different? How do they approach it differently?
Well, they challenge us to move beyond just the literal interpretation.
Really? So they don't just take everything at face value?
Precisely.
Interesting.
Baha'u'lláh actually said, "Know thou that whoso clingeth to the outward sense of the words, leaving aside their esoteric significance, is simply ignorant."
Wow. Okay, so we should be looking for deeper meanings, more symbolic interpretations.
Yes, but here's the thing. It's not about just throwing out the literal meaning altogether.
Oh,
It's about finding a balance.
okay.
Baha'u'lláh cautions against going too far in either direction. He says each verse can actually hold multiple levels of meaning. And those meanings, they kind of reveal themselves to us based on our own, spiritual development.
Okay, so what you're saying is, it's not that the text itself changes, but our ability to understand it, our ability to kind of get those deeper layers, that's what changes over time.
Exactly. Think about it like this. Even in the Surah of the Sun, the very first verses just talk about the sun and the moon.
Yeah, I remember those lines. By the sun in its noonday brightness,
Mm.
by the moon when it followeth it.
Right. Seems pretty straightforward, just appreciating nature.
Yeah.
But then Baha'u'lláh comes in and he's like, hold on a second, the sun, this could represent God's will.
Oh,
It could be talking about figures like Muhammad or Christ,
okay.
or even just individuals who act as, sources of enlightenment for others.
So you're saying those simple words, just like that, could have so many layers of meaning behind them.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It's all connected to this Baha'i concept of planes of reality.
Ain't it?
Yeah, and it's not like physical planes, but more like levels of spiritual understanding. Imagine you're climbing a mountain.
Okay.
At the base, you've got one view, but as you go higher, things look different.
Right.
You see more.
That's a great way to put it. So where someone is on their own journey spiritually, that's going to impact which layer of the meaning they're able to connect with in these texts.
Absolutely. And it really highlights that there isn't just one right way to interpret scripture.
This planes idea, that's really interesting. I definitely want to unpack that a bit more.
Yeah.
Because if what we're saying is our understanding changes as we grow, what does that mean about truth itself?
Exactly. Is it something fixed or is it something that kind of evolves with us?
Right.
Lots to think about. So these planes we're talking about, they're not like physical places,
Right,
right? More like levels of awareness or something.
Exactly. It's about how we're seeing and experiencing the world. Like imagine two people looking at the same, I don't know, beautiful painting.
Okay.
One person might only see like the technical stuff.
The brush strokes.
Yeah, the colors, the technique. But the other person, they might connect with, the emotion behind it.
Yeah, the feeling it evokes, the story it tells.
Precisely. And in the Baha'i faith, you could say those two people are operating on different planes of understanding.
Okay, so two different experiences of the same thing. Exactly. And both are valuable, but one might be, let's say, more in tune with the deeper meaning, the heart of the matter.
So how does this work in our interactions with each other? Are there different planes at play there too?
Absolutely. Think about it. Someone who's coming from a place of, pure self-interest.
Oh, I know the type.
Right. They're going to see every interaction as transactional. Like, what can I get out of this?
In there.
But someone motivated by, say, compassion, service to others,
Okay.
they're going to see the inherent value in every person.
Makes sense.
They approach things with empathy, a desire to truly connect.
So same world, but a totally different way of moving through it.
Exactly. And for Baha'u'lláh, that shift from self to other, that's part of spiritual growth.
Moving to a higher plane of being.
Exactly.
Makes you think about how we talk about some people being wise,
Right.
or enlightened. Is it that they're somehow tapped into a higher plane?
Yeah,
Seeing things others miss?
you got it. And that's going to influence how they understand scripture too. Because if we go back to Baha'u'llah's commentary on the Surah of the Sun,
Okay.
he doesn't just throw out metaphorical interpretations, he brings them in alongside the literal meaning.
So it's like he's demonstrating this balanced approach through the commentary itself.
Exactly.
Could you give us an example of that, how he does that?
Sure. So in the Surah, there's this verse. It says, "And the soul, and him who perfected it, and inspired it with what is wrong for it and what is right for it."
Okay.
Now, literally, that's about how humans have the capacity for both good and evil, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
But Baha'u'lláh, he takes it further. He says, this also points to that duality within each of us.
Oh, interesting.
The struggle between, like, our lower desires, the material stuff,
Yeah.
and our higher aspirations, the spiritual side.
Wow, so he's like revealing a whole new dimension to that verse.
Exactly. It doesn't erase the literal, it just adds to it, makes it richer.
That's like those optical illusions, you see one image, then you shift your perspective and bam, there's a whole other image there.
Perfect analogy. The image hasn't changed, but how we see it has. And suddenly we can see something we couldn't before.
This is making me want to go back and reread some of these scriptures I thought I knew, just to see what else I might find.
I encourage it.
Hmm.
Every time you approach a text with fresh eyes, you open yourself up to those deeper levels of understanding. But remember, it's not a solitary journey.
Ah, right. That's where the Baha'i emphasis on community comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to figure it all out alone.
Exactly. Studying together, reflecting together, that's so important in the Baha'i faith.
So it's kind of like a collective search for understanding.
That's a great way to put it. And this openness, it goes beyond just their own scriptures, too. The Baha'i faith embraces all religions,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They believe each one has something unique to offer, a different perspective on the same divine reality.
So it's more about recognizing that interconnectedness, that all these traditions can teach us something.
Absolutely. Even Baha'u'lláh himself, he'd often quote verses and stories from different faiths.
Wow, so he was showing that wisdom can come from anywhere.
Exactly.
It's like we're all piecing together a giant puzzle, each tradition with its own piece to contribute.
Beautiful way to put it. Recognizing the unity beneath the diversity.
This has been so eye-opening, but I have to admit, this idea that truth can evolve,
Yeah.
I'm still wrapping my head around that. If we're always growing, always understanding things differently, how do we even build a community around that? Where's the common ground if there's that much room for individual interpretation?
It's a big question, right? How do you have unity and still honor everyone's individual journey?
Well, in the Baha'i faith, the focus is on shared principles, aspirations.
Okay.
Not so much on like everyone believing the exact same thing.
Right.
They acknowledge that there will always be differences in how people think, how they interpret things.
And they see that as a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's seen as a source of richness, not something that divides. So it's more about finding that unity in the core values, the desire to connect with the divine, make the world a better place, even if the path to get there looks a little different for everyone.
Exactly. It's not about agreeing on every single detail. It's about creating a space where everyone feels respected, understood, recognizing that we're all on our own journeys, and each one of those journeys adds something valuable to the whole.
I love that. It's such a refreshing way to look at it, especially these days when everything feels so divided.
It's about finding that common thread.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up this incredible deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question. We've talked a lot about how our understanding of these texts can grow with us, but what does that tell us about truth itself? I mean, is truth something fixed, unchanging? Or is it more fluid, something that keeps unfolding, maybe even reveals new layers to us as we're ready to see them?
It's a question Baha'u'lláh encourages us to wrestle with, to really sit with, to remember that seeking true understanding, that's a lifelong journey, not a destination you just arrive at one day.
And on that note, I guess we'll have to leave it to our listeners to continue their own explorations. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of Baha'i scriptural interpretation. Until next time, keep seeking, keep asking those big questions, and most importantly, keep your minds and hearts open to the wonders of knowledge and faith.